Hey vine friends, welcome to my channel. Thank you for stopping in. Today is going to be a really chill video. We're just going to be going through the plant room and checking out my top 10 philodendron in my collection right now. I have been collecting philodendron for the longest time. I feel like philodendron may have been one of the first genuses that I started collecting. However, they're not the genus that I have the most of. I have currently 23 philodendrons in my collection, and we're just going to talk about the top 10. I have a good mixture of plants for you today. We have some weird ones, we have some colorful ones, and we also have some collector's items. Some of them have been with me for quite a while others are very new to my collection. But all of them have earned their spot in my favorites for differing reasons, and you'll see why when we walk around and talk about them. So if that sounds good to you, let's walk around, look at some leaves, and talk philodendron. Okay, starting off strong, I'm going to show you my favorite philodendron. I've had this philodendron the longest, and it is one that will definitely start a debate in the comments. No matter how you feel about it, this is my philodendron, a pink princess. And I just absolutely love the pink that comes in on these leaves. Mine has really been giving me a lot of half moon variegation, like this one. And I am so excited to even have any pink in this plant, because originally this is how the majority of the leaves were looking. It did have pink in it when I first got it, but it was just one stem and it was not growing in as well as this one. Like this right here is the main stem on this plant. It has split off this main stem right here. There's an offshoot here and an offshoot here because I had chopped this back a while ago, and it has a small little plant here, a small little plant right here as well, and I also have an offshoot that was probably about this size that I plucked out of the pot, and that one is growing in my acrobar cabinet, but it's gotten really big. It's actually bigger than this one right here that's in here. So I'm going to pluck it out of there and probably add it to this pot, just because it has some really pink leaves on it as well. But let me hold this down so you can see all of the pink in this plant. It's so pretty, and I know that some specimens are way, more pink with splashing throughout the leaves, but I think that mine is pretty nonetheless, and I'm here for all of this pink. This one is in Molly's, and it grows in my IKEA Millsbow cabinet, just because I noticed that the leaves, if they're not getting enough humidity, they will do that glass slipper a situation where they get stuck in their sheath and they don't want to come out, and then if they do come out, they're all like wonky and they grow really messed up. So I'm glad that the leaves are not doing that on this one, because it is growing in my IKEA cabinet. I would like to take it out of there, but I just started getting this type of growth on this plant, even though it's one of the oldest plants in my collection. It has literally just started growing the way that it is now. And I did chop this plant up a while ago. If I can find the video footage of it, I'll show you either some pictures or some video of when I did the big chop on this one. But it looks like we have turned the corner and we're out of the woods now. So it's not growing leggy like it was. It was initially like growing really far apart before it would give me a new leaf, and I know that that was due to it not having enough humidity in the air. So it's doing good now, and I'm so glad I didn't chuck it like I originally was going to. Okay, next up is my Philodendron Atabapoense. This one is given big leaf energy, and I am here for it. I always wanted to do this with my plants. Just because I always keep my plants really small, and I don't normally let my plants get this big just because my space is so limited. But this is one of the newer philodendrons that I have in my collection, and I am so glad that I got this plant. The leaves on this thing grow so big. Look at the leaves on this. And I am absolutely loving the growth pattern on here. It actually has a second plant in here that I just have on a little stake. Let me bring it closer so you can see what I'm talking about. You can see the little one down here in the stake, and here's the leaves on that one. I normally, if I see a little plant in here like this, I will normally pluck it out and put it in its own substrate, normally pon or leca, to see if I can grow these plants in semi-hydroponically. But I didn't do it this time just because I'm tired of all of these extra plants that I have in here from doing that and causing more work for myself. So I left it in here, and it's doing quite well. And yeah, this one is growing in Molly's aeroid mix. I do have humidifiers running in this room, so the humidity stays around anywhere between 45 to 60 lately. But now that the weather is getting a little bit more warm, the humidity isn't holding up. So this is growing in ambient with the help of a couple of humidifiers in the room, and it would not fit in my cabinet if I needed it to. So I'm so glad that it's actually able to grow well in my environment. This plant fully understands the assignment every single time it pushes out a new leaf. Look how gorgeous that new leaf is. And this is my Philodendron Florida Ghost. As you can see, the newer leaves come in a neon yellow creamy color, and then as they mature they darken off. You can see this one's been here it's still hardening off because it hasn't gone all the way green, and you can still see some of that neon green in there. But this is how this new leaf is ultimately going to darken up into this really dark green color here. And so this plant really does give you lots of color variation as it's growing in. And I think that my favorite stage, like out of all of them, has to be this creamy color when they first start emerging, and then they come in this beautiful creamy yellow color. It's so pretty. Philodendron Florida Ghost. This next plant is my Philodendron Summer Glory, and this one made the list because it is so easy to grow. You wouldn't think so just by looking at the leaves and how pillowy they grow in. They just look like they're fluffy, but they're really not. They curve on the ends to give the appearance of being fluffy, but they're really not. And when they come in, The newer leaves come in with like a bronze color. I don't have any new ones on here right now that are coming in, which is strange because this thing grows like a weed. It's currently growing in mollies, and there's about 4 plants in here, and I have not changed it over into a crawling pot just because I don't like crawling pots. And this plant is doing just fine. I don't need the leaves to be humongous, but they will get humongous if I give them the crawling plant that they desire. But I'm okay with this plant being just like this, and I'm gonna keep it in this setup as long as I can. And despite this one being a crawling philodendron, I highly recommend it because it is so easy. It doesn't give me any problems. I haven't had any pests to deal with, even though I've had a thrips and a mealybugs outbreak. They didn't bother this plant, and it's doing just fine. So very easy, lots of shiny big leaves on this thing, and I highly recommend it. Okay, this is my philodendron Joepii, and I love this plant because of the leaf shape, because it has these little ears and then what looks like a face. It looks like a little moose head to me. I don't know why, but that's what it gives, moose head. But I was actually intimidated by this plant initially. I thought it would be so hard to grow, but no, in fact, it's one of the easiest plants that I have. And you'll see that I have it on a moss pole that is not hydrated at all. It's very dry, just like the rest of my moss poles, but it doesn't seem to mind. And if you can see here, it actually has a root that's growing inside of here, even though this hasn't been hydrated in over a month at least. I'm terrible with my moss poles, but I don't want to take this one off the moss pole just because I noticed that the leaves are sizing up since it has the ability to grow into a pole. So maybe it doesn't need a moss pole. Maybe it can just have a coco coir pole and we'll get the same results. But I'm not going to take it off this pole because the roots have grown into it, and it, as you can see, it obviously needs an extension that I have not given it yet, but I'll be doing that soon. So please stay tuned for a philodendron care video. But yeah, this is one of my favorites. I love the leaves and how they grow in. When it was less mature, you can see here that this leaf didn't have its little ears on it yet, but now it has these little floppy ears growing in on it. And they're not ears, they're just part of the leaf, but they remind me of ears, so I'm calling them ears. And also, I have not washed this plant off in maybe a week or two because you can see all the extra floral nectary on the leaves. Maybe you can see it. But yeah, it needs a shower because if you don't get that extra floral nectary off of the leaves and the stems, it will leave marks. So I need to go ahead and rinse that off. As a matter of fact, you could probably see on the back of this leaf that it had extra floral nectary on the leaf, and I left it there too long and it's stained, but you can't see it just by looking at it. It has to have the light shining through so you can see it. So I don't care. I love this plant, and hopefully it'll be in my collection for a long, long time. Okay, this one is my Florida green, and I love a flashy plant like my Florida ghost that I just showed you a minute ago, and how flashy those leaves are. But there's just something about a solid green leaf that is just timeless. look at the leaves on this one. The leaf shape is so awesome, and I guess you can tell that I like this type of leaf shape because I have several philodendron in my collection that look like this one. And I showed this one recently in another video that I was talking about my semi-hydro plants, and this one is growing in leca. And during that video, I broke a piece of it off at the top. But I have it rooting in water, and I cut the other stem down as well because there's two plants in here. Let me see if I can set it down. Because there's two plants in here, and so I cut this one back as well, and the other one just broke off while we were filming. But I put both of them in water and letting them root up, and they are going to be potted up back in this same pot because it is growing and it looks really like scraggly and not filled in. So I want to fill in and make it more lush. So I'll be doing that soon as well. And this one is growing in leca. My Joepii is also growing in leca in a self-watering. And this one is not on a moss pole, it's on a coco coir. Well, actually this is a moss pole as well, but it's one of the ones that you don't have to keep moist all the time or hydrated all the time, and it just grows like this. Now this plant still feels a little unreal that I actually have this one in my collection. This plant used to be very expensive, and I finally got one in my collection. The prices have come down tremendously on this, and mine is currently in water. I've had it growing in, when I got it, I initially put it in leca, or was it pond? I don't remember. I think it might have been pond, and it didn't like pond. So I had to take it out of pond. It lost all of its roots. I grew the roots back in water, and then I transitioned it into pond again because it had water roots on it, and it lost all of its roots again. And so I put it back in water. And so now it's grown its roots back, but now I'm scared to put it in anything. I think maybe leca this time because I just don't want this in soil. I have been transitioning a lot of my plants into semi-hydro, and this was one of them that I wanted in semi-hydro, and I still want it to be in semi-hydro, but now I'm gun shy. And I don't know whether or not to try it. What do you guys have your Spiritus Sancti growing in? Is it semi-hydro or mollies, or what's the deal with it? Because I'm almost tempted to put it in mollies and see if it likes that substrate better than being in semi-hydro. But I guess we'll see. But you can see these are the leaves that, this is how long the leaves were when it came to me, and all of these longer leaves are ones that have grown in my care despite it having root rot twice. And it seems to be happier growing in water, but I really want to get this into its permanent substrate soon. So it's been very finicky for me when it's potted up, but when it's not and just growing in water, I don't have any issues with this thing. It just grows. It gives me leaf after leaf. As you can see, this was the newest leaf that's still hardening off, and it's already put out a new growth right here to give me a new leaf. So very excited about that, and I probably need to get it on some kind of a support pole as well, but I'm not in a rush for that because I'm just thankful that it didn't croak on me again, and it's still thriving. So this is my Philodendron Spiritus Sancti. This plant choice and how I have it growing might get me judged a little. So before y'all come for me in the comment, I know it's a crawler, but I don't want it to grow like that. I have mine growing on a coco coir pole. And no, it does not stay on that pole, just like it doesn't stay inside of the pots that we put them in, even when we have them in a pot that they can crawl in. So I let it grow up this pole, and then I let it grow off the pole. And then once it gets longer with a couple of more leaves, the stem is a little bit more viable. And so I can extend this pole once this vine gets a little longer. And I'm just going to keep it growing up this coco coir pole. And I don't care if it's supposed to be crawling. I like that it's growing up vertically as opposed to sprawling out horizontally. I have more room in my home for plants that grow up as opposed to needing a wider area to spread out in. So this is my Philodendron Gloriosum on a coco coir pole. Okay, the next plants that I want to show you are downstairs in my living room and in my dining room area. But before we go down there, I want to throw in an honorable mention, and that is my Philodendron tortum. And this plant, I feel, is a good alternative to a majesty palm. Those things are such spider magnets, and if you like that look, I think that you'll enjoy a Philodendron tortum, because this plant is so low maintenance. And look how big the new growth this is getting now that it's on a support pole in here, and it's getting really bright light. It's like sitting right under one of my T5 Barina lights, and it seems to really enjoy that. This one is in a self-watering pot, and it is much thirstier than I had originally thought. So having it in this self-watering pot in Molly's is what I'm currently growing it in. I would have loved to have this one in semi-hydro as well, and I thought about doing that because there are two plants in this pot, but I like having both of them in here just to give it a much fuller look than just having one stem in here, and I don't have to cut it back to make it bushier. Okay, for the last two plants in the list, I have my Philodendron Brasil, and this one grows and is not like any other of the philodendron that I had in this video. You can see that this one is so hardy, and I love a plant that looks expensive but isn't, and I also love a plant who wants to live, and this Philodendron Brasil wants to live. Look at this. It is thriving in my environment, and I have this one growing in Molly's aeroid mix, and it gets bottom watered because it's just in this grow planter that I don't have a cover pot on because I really don't need one, because you can't really see it from the way that it sits. You see it from the front, and this is the back, and it just sits down in a bowl that I water from the bottom, and it seems to like that environment. And I love that when these leaves grow in, they have like a bronzy undertone on them, and when they harden off and mature, they have this little green streak going down the middle of it, and some of them have even more of a green streak in the center. But I like when it's this highly yellowy green color. And I wish that would be more pronounced than it would be if I would give this plant more light. But can you imagine if this plant was getting full light, how big it would be? So I'm not too pressed about giving it more light. I actually like the way that it's growing. I like the compactness of it and the color on this one. So this is my Philodendron Brasil growing in my living room next to the television. And then the last philodendron that I want to highlight, last but certainly not least, is my Philodendron Burle-Marxii. And this, along with my Philodendron Pink Princess, is two of the oldest plants in my collection. I actually got this plant the same year that I got my Pink Princess, and they have stood the test of time. This one has been performing way better than the Philodendron Pink Princess did, as you can see by its growth pattern. And this one is also compact. The leaves are not big, even though I have it growing on a coco coir pole. Let me turn this so you can see the pole in here. Let's see. Yeah, you can see the pole, the coco coir pole that I have in there. If I didn't have that pole in there, this thing would be flopped over and growing, trailing, which I tried growing some of it trailing. I didn't like the way that it looked, and it takes up a lot of space. So I think that this is my favorite way to grow this plant, and it has gotten so big. Like I think I paid like $55 for this plant, but at the time it was probably only like this big. So this plant has definitely grown. It loves being in this light, in this window that it gets, and whenever I water it, it's in a self-watering pot, and so I water it from the bottom, and every time I water it, I rotate the pot so that it can evenly, so the sunlight can evenly get distributed, and and keep it growing evenly like this. So this is my Philodendron Burle-Marxii. Okay, those were officially my philodendron favorites. And honestly, narrowing this thing down was really hard. That's why I had to throw in the honorable mention for my Philodendron tortum. But I also could have mentioned my Philodendron Bilietiae dark form, as well as my Orange Crush. And I know that people are moving away from moss poles, but are you guys moving away from moss poles? Because the majority of the philodendron that I have in my collection, I know that they like being on either a coco coir pole or a moss pole, and I cannot for the life of me keep these moss poles hydrated. So I have opted for coco coir poles instead whenever I can, but I do still have some moss poles that may or may not be hydrated right now. At any rate, let me know whether or not you are growing philodendrons in your collection, or if you're over the hype. And if you've hung out in the video with me this far, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you being here. And if you've not done so already, please hit that like and subscribe buttons below, and I'll see you next time.